students are gone, but you are still here. And we know how you feel because you are done. But you have so much work to do to get ready for tomorrow. Good afternoon, podcast listeners everywhere. Welcome to After the Bell, a Stunt Brothers production. A podcast that gets inside the life of a teacher and provides a wellness guide for being prepared to take on this most challenging of professions. I'm Martin Stuvel.
And I'm Roy Hunt. And we share your pain, having taught a combined 70 years. The guarantee of this podcast is to make you laugh, make you think, and give you at least one little nugget that you can use in the classroom. So get out your marking, organize your supplies, or just pour yourself a coffee.
I want something stronger.
And listen, engage, and interact with After the Bell, a podcast for you, the hard-working, dedicated teacher who wants 3 lesson plans, free advice, and a free meal.
Okay, Roy, but I'm not paying for anything more than McDonald's. Well, Mr. Hunt, episode number 15.
15. It seems like a long road trip right now.
Well, how do you like that number? I mean, you've been a prime number man. You were waiting for episode 10. 15 sounds
15,
like just sounds like it's a pleasing number.
Yes.
Right?
I don't. So then I've seen or listened to some other podcasts and they say, here we are, episode 2000. I'm like, 2000? Like, there's got to be some repeats. I mean, I think we've had a couple of repeats and we've only gone to 15.
I think they're releasing them every day. Should we start that now? No. We've been 15 consistent episodes since the beginning of January, so I think we can celebrate that.
We can celebrate 15.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're here in May. Beautiful, beautiful weather going on.
Amazing weather. We've had temperatures 21 degrees, 22 degrees for the last few days. Sun, no clouds.
And everything's flourishing and green and the gardens are growing.
You're in your garden again.
Look at the hands.
Oh, my gosh.
Right? Like, you see the dirt in those fingernails.
Those fingernails are
I am back at it.
Yes, you are. Just to let you know, though, that I was in the garden too.
Oh, really?
Yes. Nice. I pulled out some weeds and I planted some sunflower seeds.
I'm impressed.
And some wildflowers and got our patio back into action. So I'm looking forward to.
See, we could do episode 2000 if we alternate, right?
Yes.
The other days. Well, I'll be gardening podcasts, right? I think we've got enough going. You're in there now,
yes.
Right? You could do a whole episode on sunflowers.
No, thank you.
That's the thing. Do you want 2,000 episodes filled with mundane analysis of sunflowers, or do you want the high quality product that we are producing?
Oh, I'd like to stick with the high quality product that we're producing.
Episode 15. Oh, that's good. And I know last week we talked about comments we're getting from all around the world and different listeners. So why don't we share a couple more of those comments?
Yes. And the comments that this was from is homework as to what teaching is like to me.
We asked listeners to come up with a metaphor for teaching is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in this metaphor from Anonymous.
Okay.
Yes. Teaching is like throwing a birthday party every day for 5 hours with over 20 kids while meeting curricular goals.
Yeah, indeed it is. And you got to meet with the parents of those kids, right? So another level. But I also got a comment from Mark Thompson.
Again,
I think, he's been commenting quite
regularly.
A bit.
He makes comments. Yes,
he is,
and we enjoy those comments.
We do.
Yes,
keep them coming, Mark. And Mark talks about what teaching is for him. He says, "For me, teaching is like the TV show Survivor, never-ending, unexpected challenges." Allies and rivals, various administrative hosts, an audience of parents ready to critique your every word and decision, and plenty of creative strategies to make it through. If only there was $1 million at the end.
Yes.
Wow.
And then the only caveat with that is you don't want to be voted off the island.
Wow.
As a teacher.
I know. The allies and rivals? Where are you teaching, Mark? Wow.
I don't know.
Quite a challenge. And
Did
you get voted off at the end, like every year? That must be a lot of pressure. But I see Mark's name.
Yes.
And we have talked about our, right now we're calling it like 5 for a beer challenge, or that is
5 here for beer.
Right.
Or
It's going to be connected to our celebration that we're going to hold in July to celebrate episode or season 1 of
the
After
completed
the Bell.
season of After the Bell. Yes.
Yeah, and our hope is actually throughout the summer we're going to do just short little weekly 10-minute summer sessions. Right?
Yes.
We know there'll be a lot less listeners in the summer. People are busy with stuff, but just 10-minute sessions where we'll kind of talk about some things from our past and share thoughts as we sit in our garden, maybe, right?
Or maybe some ideas for those teachers who are on their summer vacation already starting to think about the start of the school year again.
They do. And this episode, we're actually, when we get onto it, we're actually going to the focus is to start thinking about that September, because we know teachers this time of year, they start thinking about it. They really do, right? They're busy with all kinds of things. Staffing, right? Placement of kids for next year. But they're also thinking about what grade am I going to teach and how will I teach it? And I have a new idea, But going back to that 5 for a Beer challenge, on our website, we will have a new page. I think we'll call it upcoming event. So we'll talk about this upcoming event to celebrate at some local establishment here in North Vancouver, where we will look at the names like Mark, and you can't be anonymous.
No anonymous.
Right? Mr. Anonymous, Mrs. Anonymous, Ms. Anonymous, sorry. Right? You
have to use your name.
You're allowed to stay anonymous, but we cannot include you in the contest. Right? So we'll put you in, and the top 5 will get a free beer from an After the Bell beer.
Our top 5 commenters.
Yes. And if you're from another part of the world, come on over. But
that's right.
We will not pay your ticket to get here.
But we will. If you come here, we'll give you beer.
We will buy you a beer.
Speaking of comments, on Facebook, I noticed that you had made some comments about your trip to Africa, and some amazing photos were posted also.
Yeah, it was amazing. I had a month in Africa, as listeners know, and we were there in most of end of March, most of April, and I did post some amazing pictures that are amazing because I was so close to these lions and leopards. I was given this chance to have these shots that were just part of being in that new culture of Africa. And, you were away too,
yes,
right?
My daughter and I went to Iceland for I went for a week and she went for 2 weeks. And it was amazing because we were at the cusp of changing from winter to spring, and every 5 minutes the weather was different.
Yeah,
we rented a 4x4 with studded tires, and it was amazing because I have lots of experience in winter driving.
Yeah,
and there were some conditions where the road was pretty slick, but I have some experience, and the vehicle was amazing. And then my daughter, with using technology to get us to where we needed to go, it was unbelievable. It was a match made in heaven in the sense that I had the experience driving, and she had the experience getting us to where we needed to go, and it was an amazing bonding experience.
When you talk about the vehicle and getting stuck and those kind of things, it was a kind of a neat cultural moment I discovered. Because we were on an overland trip and we were driving, for 3 to 4 weeks every day in the African roads where, you have to be willing to bounce around and, drive around potholes that are bigger than the cars themselves. And there was a moment where we were in northern Namibia in the Brandenburg Mountains where we went on this hike over this river. And the rains had been really severe for several weeks before. So we were the first vehicle to go in. Probably not a good idea because on the way back, we got stuck in the mud. We were stuck. And so everyone got out. We tried to get the vehicle out. Didn't work. But what I was amazed culturally about the place, here I am in the middle of Namibia. There's no village around. I don't see anyone. But suddenly people came around out of the bush from everywhere. There obviously was a village nearby. They sensed that we needed help. And this wonderful camaraderie of people coming to they brought boards with them to put under the tires of the truck, right? They built us a fire because we were actually there late into the night because we still didn't get the truck out to keep the leopards away they talked about. But it was just the culture of that place that was so helpful. And we're instantly there to make it better for everyone, to keep everybody safe. That was amazing for me. Did you find in Iceland, just in terms of the change when you said from from spring into winter, or winter into spring, and the darkness and stuff. Are there things you notice with the culture of Iceland that they've kind of adapted to that land of the midnight sun and the land of total brightness for other parts of the year?
Well,
And the darkness in other times?
my guess is that when the weather starts getting nice, and we were there, and I believe it was starting to get light around 7:30 in the morning. They have been used to the darkness for the winter. You just would see people everywhere. And much like here in North Vancouver, you would when people would, it doesn't matter, rain or shine, snow, fall, you see people on their bicycles and you see people running. And it was the same in Iceland, except it was colder.
But they were still out there.
They were out there.
Yeah.
There was a sheet of ice pellets, and there were running groups and there were cycling groups.
So they don't stop for
they
the weather,
don't stop.
basically. Yeah, interesting.
And I believe that in that culture, there's a hardiness. They're saying, if we don't go out now, we'll never go out.
Right, yeah.
And so just, people were out there giving it in all forms of weather. And we traveled from the west coast down south and up halfway up the east coast of Iceland. And every 5 minutes, we were in a different weather zone. It was crazy.
There really is a culture of hardiness. And do you remember the participation program when we were kids? And they had the gold, the silver, and the bronze, right? That all drew out of some study that showed that a 70-year-old Norwegian was in better shape than a 25-year-old Canadian. And I think Pierre Trudeau was prime minister at the time and wanted to change that. And that was just a cultural thing that made us kind of look at our own culture. I'm thinking I think we got our theme here.
I think so.
I think it's class culture and building that culture within your class. We often don't think of classrooms as culture. We think of them as sterile places. You come in, students look at the teacher, and then they have the lesson. But they are cultural places.
And they are. And I think especially that cultural setting that we're talking about is predominantly in elementary schools because you spend so much time with the students.
Yeah, and I think you and I have had a real appreciation for that importance of culture that has really guided our teaching, and I think we've touched upon it throughout the podcast, but I think the time has come to actually make that the focus of the podcast, building a class culture.
Building class culture.
So I guess we're going to have the Nugget sound because I love that sound, so I'm all ready.
You're not going to hear that sound.
It's a new sound?
It's a new sound.
Okay, I'm going to listen, see what I'm a little...
See what it
okay.
is.
You always give me a surprise.
There you go. Well, I like to change it up a bit.
Okay. Well, what's this? That's not the Nugget sound. Usually it's the Nugget after we do the beginning part.
It's a new sound.
Oh, it is a new sound.
We're calling it the backgrounder.
Are we going to do the Nugget? No Nugget this time?
We will do the Nugget.
We're going to get to the Nugget?
We'll get to the Nugget, but we're going to do a backgrounder. And the backgrounder
So the segment's called the backgrounder.
This segment is called the backgrounder.
I just get a little, I like my order.
Okay, I know.
Now I like my Nugget. Let's try this.
In the backgrounder, when we come up with the themes that we're for our episodes, instead of just pulling it off the top of our heads, we like to do some research.
See what's out there. Some peer research stuff that's
peer
in
research,
there. Right?
Current research, current ideas, current ways of thinking. And from that, we will choose some articles that really connect with us or resonate with our thinking and our ideas.
And for this theme, a lot of the things we did, we said, let's go on, let's do some reading, some real research. We gave ourselves quite a bit of homework to dive deep into this.
And I know how much you like homework.
Yeah, I know. And suddenly I had a lot to do.
A lot of reading.
And we went deep and looked into the idea of culture in the classroom. And we did come across this reading from the University of Nebraska. I like their program. It's called Transformative Teaching. I really like that, the way they put that. And they came out with these 7 dimensions, right?
7 dimensions of the classroom climate.
And I think when we looked them through, we said, that sounds like us. Like we didn't realize, in fact, that we follow these 7 dimensions.
Well, I have steps in my head.
Yes.
But when I looked at how clearly they laid out those 7 steps, I'm like, wow, that's even better than what I could have thought of. But it's like they picked some of the stuff right off of my brain.
I agree, right? It was kind of nice to see it all laid out in a way that went, That's me.
That's me.
But I didn't know it was me at the time, right?
Yes.
So why don't we share what these 7 steps are? We'll just go through and let listeners know. These, of course, will be on our website,
Yes.
and we'll put other documents for you to share. But we'll go through them. You and I read them out, and then we'll go back to each one and maybe share our own connections, why we felt they resonated with us, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So the first one, it said personalization. Personalization, it said. And then
the next one is involvement.
Then they had student cohesiveness,
Yes. Satisfaction.
task orientation,
Innovation.
individualization.
Individualization. Yes.
Yeah, those are the 7. So let's start off with personalization, which is students see that their teacher sees them as individuals and cares about their well-being and success. So I'm thinking this is Mr. Hunt in a nutshell, right?
Yes. Really working to make one-to-one contact with the students, value their ideas, listen to what they have to say, their stories from the weekend, whatever, anything and everything to make that connection.
It to me, I've said it before and I'll say it again, it is the foundation of the class, right? Making those connections. We did an episode on connections, and that's personalizing their stories and who they are and making them realize that they are heard. It doesn't mean they run the class. Like, I still think you have to have someone running the class.
Yes.
You can have chaos then, and I don't think anybody learns in pure chaos, but it's making them go, this is a family that I want to be part of and I feel supported. So, Roy, were there things you did to show that you understood personalization was important, or was it just something that kind of was organic in your class?
I think I give opportunities for the students to share with me or to share with others, to bring in things that connected to their culture or connected to who they were. And the idea of the sharing. So, I know in kindergarten they say shine and share, but really it didn't matter at what grade I was teaching, right up to grade 7. There were students who were really proud of certain things that,
absolutely,
and they wanted to share that with the rest of the class.
Yeah.
Well, what about you? What are some things you did for personalization?
Well, we talked a few weeks ago about slow starts, right, to the day. And as I incorporated that just in the last few years in my class, that part of the day, that often would be a lineup of my desk, or if I was sitting on the comfy chair, just to come tell me things, right? It was just, and it wasn't publicly in front of the classes, things people wanted to share and talk about, and I would share stuff with them, and it felt like just, dad talking about stuff with their kids. And it just, they were, the pride in them sometimes just to be able to have that moment to share. And then they went on and were sharing things with each other, and that's why I did learn to really like that slow start. So what we have next on this list?
Involvement.
Okay.
And involvement is all the students are actively invited to participate in the class, resulting in an inclusive learning environment.
Yeah, so important, right? That we need to notice those that maybe are quieter or at the background, or if there's group work, they tend to just watch and not really become an active participant.
So in that involvement, what I would do is I called it, I think I've referred to it before as a sticktatorship. So we have popsicle sticks with all the students' names on it.
Yeah.
And I would randomly draw from the jar and use student names, and then make sure that the students that were called on were pulled off to the side so that I could cycle through everyone, give everybody an opportunity. And I also respected the students that when I don't want to go.
Sometimes they don't, right? And you also, it can't just be forced on you, right? Because you've lost to me that trust and that personalization in the first step, right?
Yes. So that involvement could go in the sense where to say, well, I don't want to be involved at this moment. But then I would check back in with that student and say, okay, but I would like you to at a particular time, but you get to choose that time.
Yeah. And I often would have random ways of bringing kids into the conversation. I would use, on Classroom Screen, which is an online screen, which you can have all kinds of things up on the screen if you have that technology in your class, whether it's a timer, whether it's the date, whether it's a lesson that you're doing, or connects to websites. But it also had a random name generator.
Oh.
Yeah. So it was kind of nice. You could have the class list in there. And then at the beginning of the year, I would often start with just a read aloud, and I would have them say, I'm going to stop every few minutes. And I want you just to say something about what I've read, a character you like, what you think might happen next, a connection. But with the random name generator, it would go through the class, and they knew when their name appeared up there, it was their turn to share something, right? And it just made sure you got to everyone, because sometimes you lose track, right? That because those that kind of demand your time, take your time, right?
Yes.
And then you have to consciously think about sometimes, who am I not involving in the lesson? Yeah.
Okay. Our next one is student cohesiveness. Students are encouraged to know and work with their peers during class activities to build a sense of community.
Very important.
So what would you do for student cohesiveness?
Well, I know in the beginning of the year, because I really feel the beginning was the kind of prime time to get this culture going, we would do interviews where I would, within the day one or day two, I would pair them up, and I would pair, right, randomly them with other students, so they knew that in this class you do work with different people, not just your friends, and they'd have to interview each other and then present the information to the class. And part of it at the end was what I called the bluffing game, where they would give 3 facts about their partner. 2 would be true, 1 would not be true, and then we tried to guess which one was made up. And it kind of set the standard in front of the students that this was a class where you do have to participate and be cohesive and work together.
Oh, wow.
How about you?
For me, I think one of the things, I made sure that my students knew everyone's name in the class. We would go through naming games, little things in the beginning of the week of the school year, where we get a circle and just work and work and work until the idea would be that the big challenge would be you could close your eyes.
Yes.
And name all the students in the circle that was around you.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. And because I often found that there were classrooms that I have gone into for other teachers and found out that there's some students who didn't know the names of the students in the
sometimes
classroom.
like later on in the year, right?
Yes. And another thing that I like to do is I would have my class meeting. We talked about class meetings before.
Yeah.
And on the Monday mornings, I push all the chairs out and the tables out to the walls. And we'd sit down, have our class meeting. And I would make a new seating arrangement every Monday for almost the first 2 months. And there would be new seating arrangements, new people sitting together, so that they got to learn about others in the classroom. They got to work with others in the classroom. It also gave me as a teacher an opportunity to see what combinations didn't work at all and how we could make them more successful later on.
And it's vital those first few weeks, right, to get that information, and that's a good way to do it. And don't you think it also establishes with them that they do work in groups with other people? It's not always going to be their friends, and every week you change it up or whatever, and they get used to that and they go, okay, well, that's the way they do things here now.
Yes.
And it just really helps with the student cohesiveness, I think.
Yes.
And I liked when you refer back to the class meetings and the morning chats that we've talked about, right? I think those were a big part of the day when we had those daily things that just made us feel we had a class culture going on here. And then we have satisfaction, which students find value in and enjoy coming to class. I mean, vital, right?
Yes. Once these things are in place and you're feeling part of the community, part of the family, who wants a family where you're the only adult and there are 26 or 27 students, which are students, class children in your room, that's a huge family.
Yeah.
But there is an amazing feeling when they walk in the door and they're happy to come to school and they smile and they say,
yeah.
And I've always looked forward to having the students come in. I was always made sure I would greet them when they would come in the morning. And I think throughout my career, there are often times where parents would come to me and say, my son or my daughter is really excited about coming to school for the first time in a long time.
Yeah. And don't you find in this age of anxiety, when they often have moments in classes where people say this student just doesn't want to come and they haven't come for weeks, I didn't really face that. I'm not trying to say I had some magic potion going on in my class, right? But I think the foundation of the class was a warm and accepting place. So they wanted to come, right? And I think we built that at the beginning of the year. And by building that, everything else does follow, right?
Yes.
But it's integral to that classroom to have that. No, that's good. What do we have next?
Task orientation. Students find class activities to be worthwhile, well organized, and clearly aligned to learning objectives / goals and expectations.
Yeah, I mean, it's everything, right?
Yes. Well, and in that task orientation, right, I know that both of us, we've come up with, well, here's the lesson plan. Here's what we're going to do for this year. And then I'm looking at my students. And oftentimes I'm looking at the students and I used this last year, but you know what? I'm going to change it up this year. I'm going to make it a little different. I'm going to tweak it. Maybe I ask for some student involvement, or maybe I just redo the whole thing because I want to make an opportunity for a better connection with my students.
I think it's important to actually put the thermometer out and kind of check the temperature, because it does change from year to year, and you can't assume just because it worked last year, it will work this year, right? And you have to tweak it, and your kids will let you know, right? And they may not say it out loud, but you can get a sense. Are these children engaged, right?
Yes.
Is this an activity that I would want to do if I was a student in a class, right?
And then, the thing is, because you are the teacher and you are doing it, oftentimes I change it up just for my own interest, because I find it sort of lacking or a little dull.
Yeah. And you get a renewed excitement about it, right?
Yes.
When it's something new. Yeah, no, that's good. And then our next one on the list is innovation. Activities and assignments are designed using pedagogical best practices. Students understand why the instructor is using these activities and assignments.
Right. And that's almost a continuation of that task orientation, just trying to find out something that's interesting. What is something that is connecting with students right now? What are the hot topics, or the things that are interesting? Can we bring that in to make the classroom more inclusive or more connected to the interests of our students?
And trying to do things that kind of bring all the different subjects together. One year we decided to plan a trip to Mars, right? And you get language arts going, you get some math going, some physics were involved. It made it real. And I've always had a career where I just get some idea in my head and then go, how can I make this work and show innovation? And then that allows students to show innovation. I think we model that for our students.
Yes. And the last one we have is individualization. Students are given autonomy or choice for some aspects of the class, which allows them to develop and explore ideas that are interesting to them.
Yeah, it's so important. And I mean, I would joke with the class at the beginning, because I would call my class a democratic dictatorship, right? And then we talk about the word oxymoron as well in that discussion, two opposites, right? But in a sense, I still think you need someone who's running the show. I couldn't imagine a completely democratic classroom. It might work for some, but I don't know how, as an educator, you do know what the curriculum is, and you'd have to kind of make things work. And sometimes kids are going to have to realize it's just work time, and you've got to do it because Mr. Stubel or Mr. Hunt said it's sit down and do it, right? And the government expects you to do this.
Yes.
But you can do it in a way that they know they are listened to. And it's not just a pretend listening, right? You're not just giving them, okay, I think I care what you want to say, but I'm not actually going to follow through. Through your class meetings, your class chats, involving them in discussions about what you're learning and stuff, and formulating your ideas for your lessons, they know what's genuine or not, right? Kids have a really good, I'll call it BS detector, right?
BS
they know,
detector. Yes,
they know
do.
it very easily, and they know when someone's genuine in front of them.
Yes. And I think the other thing about that individualization is you have an idea, maybe a way you want them to present some information, and then someone comes up to you and said, Mr. Hunt, could I do this in a different way? And that could be, we've done things from PowerPoint presentations. Could I act it out? Could I do some art?
Yes.
Could I create something that would is more connected to my interests, but still would give you, Mr. Hunt, what you need as my understanding of the subject.
And that really helps, I think, students who have certain learning needs that might be different, right? That they can show their knowledge in that without having to fit into a certain hole, right?
Yes.
When they have a square peg, right? Whatever it is. It's just open to those different ways of presentation. I think that's good. So now we gave you the idea of the backgrounder, and then I'm just going to wait for that sound because I love the sound that's coming up. That's the sound.
Yeah. Are you happy now?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am now.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the sound of the nugget. That's the takeaway, something that you can use in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And so in our nugget, we're asking our listeners to take the first 2 weeks of the beginning of school and work on developing a class culture.
Yeah, we had a really good discussion in the backgrounder about the 7 dimensions of classroom climate. And now we want to take what our experience says is that those 2 weeks at the very beginning of the year, that is a vital time to jump right into class culture, not into everything else.
Not into the curriculum. I know we have this intense need to unpack all the supplies,
Yes.
label all our binders,
Yes.
and get right into the curriculum.
Because report cards are coming.
Report cards are coming, yes. But I want you to, our listeners to think about this. Those students are coming into your classroom from a different grade, from a different teacher.
Yeah.
So when they're coming into your classroom, they're new faces.
Yes.
This is an opportunity to lay a new social fabric in the classroom.
Yeah.
They are unbalanced in the way that the strategies that they used in last year's classroom aren't going to work in this classroom.
They've come to a new country,
It's a new environment, yes.
And they're looking around. There's some maybe students they didn't get along with 2 years ago. Now they're back in their class. There's so many factors going on that you need to be aware of.
And when people come in and those strategies don't work, they're hungry for something to hang on to. They're looking for an opportunity to build a base or a groundwork for stability.
Yeah.
And that is the excellent opportunity for a teacher to plug in all of those opportunities to get to know each other by
Yes.
names,
Yeah.
get to listen to each other. I have a background in outdoor education, and I've used team building skills and games that are like cooperative games
Yes.
from Terry Orlick and
He's
Outward
very
Bound.
good. Yes, yeah.
I've used those all through my career, and just laying that foundation of listening, working together, team building skills. Because the fear is if you don't do that, if you jump right into the curriculum, they're looking for the place where they can settle, and they'll start making their own social connections.
There will be a culture.
There will be a culture.
Whether you're involved or not. And people have to realize that. If you don't shape that culture and be a part of it, come December, there will be a culture in that class that will be impossible to pull back into a way that you think is a good learning environment.
Well, and it would be very hard to redistribute that group or change that pattern of thinking. The opportunity is right in that first few weeks when they come into that classroom.
Yeah, they're looking for that. And how are things done in this classroom? I'm in Mr. Hunt's class now. How are things here, right? And if you establish those things like interviews, cooperative games, name games, going outside, doing certain things, being in different groups once a week, not just with your friends, you've established this new culture. And of course, it takes the whole year to build that culture. But those first 2 weeks are vital.
They are.
And that is why we're saying
for the Nugget, take those first 2 weeks in the beginning of the school year and facilitate the development of your classroom culture.
Absolutely.
What's that sound?
What's that sound? And there's the sound. That is the homework board sound. Now, I know last week, Roy, we had a field trip.
Yes, we did.
I loved the field trips.
Field trip was amazing.
But I'm looking up on the board, and it's not a field trip this week.
It's homework.
It's actual homework.
It's not dreaded homework. I know you have this problem with homework. This homework, I would like it to be more of a reflection from our listeners.
Okay.
And I know we've talked about the 7 dimensions of the classroom climate. We've gone through those steps. We've talked about how important we think they are. So I would like our listeners to share with us the things that they do in those first 2 weeks of school to develop a classroom climate. Now, you and I both know that teachers, when the students come in the door, unpack supplies, get everybody seated, get your name tag made, and let's start with where you are at with math.
Right.
So diagnostic things, but really the
Wait
most...
with those, we say. Wait, yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, focus on culture, right? And it's building
Focus
that.
on the class culture.
We also know there are many ways to do this, and we had a few ideas, but we want to hear from others how they build that culture.
How they build that.
I think that when people jump into the diagnostic things, it's more common than you think, right? We think the common thing should be building culture first.
Yes.
Right? And so share with us what you may do for these 7 dimensions of classroom climate.
Yes. Well, because I would like to think that everyone will start with that idea of the classroom climate, building that, but maybe not the amount of time that's really necessary to start to facilitate that development. Sometimes we just say, okay, we're going to do this. We'll pay lip service to it by doing a little bit of it, but not necessarily enough of it.
Yeah, yeah. And you're not going to do it all in that 2 weeks. You're going to build it, as we said, throughout the year. But if you make that your prime focus,
yes,
the reward will be wonderful.
Yes.
Right?
And every teacher will bring a different lens to to the way that they would develop that culture or the activities. If you're outdoor based, then maybe some of your activities will be outside. But if you're scientifically based, maybe you're going to do class building or class culture building by using STEM activities, which is a great opportunity too.
Maybe you're artistic, and there's more ways you do that are cooperative art projects you can do together. But the key is, we would love this to be almost a movement throughout the world. And I say the world because we have listeners from many countries now.
Yes, we do. Not just North America.
South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Europe. We have someone in Sweden. So it's wonderful that if this was a focus, I think the impact on people's year will be positive. And I think the impact on students and their confidence and the reduction in their anxiety will follow.
Yes. And the idea that if a number of people were to post the things that they did in our classroom, then I'm going to use the word again, we would have a robust...
There's that word again, yes.
a robust collection of ideas that anyone could use. And that's really the purpose of our podcast, is to provide opportunities to give things to teachers. And this is one opportunity for our listeners to contribute in a way that would help, especially the new teachers who are just starting a classroom. How do I start to set this classroom culture forward? It would be amazing to have a list of activities that could be done that a new teacher could use.
Yeah, we want to be a real hub for that, right? And if we're a hub where people go and go, well, no, I don't like that idea, but look at this. I got a comment from someone in Australia, and they have this idea for building classroom culture in the first 2 weeks. That's something I can go with, right? So that is our homework for this week, is to look on the backgrounder, review the 7 dimensions of classroom climate, and share what you may do in the first 2 weeks to build classroom culture. And there's the sound, Roy, of Rearview Mirror. Who or what are we going to do with Rearview Mirror this week?
Well, today I'd like to talk about Terry Orlick.
Oh, that's good, because we both have talked about him in this podcast, and I think he had a big influence on us and was a real big advocate for building culture.
Yes. Terry Orlick was a founding father of cooperative games. He saw the need for greater cooperation at a societal level and saw how cooperative gaming could fit into this. Cooperative games are at the intersection of 4 major pedagogical trends: recognition of the value of play, cooperative learning, attention to school climate, and gamification of education for content learning.
Yeah, Terry Orlick was a professor at the University of Ottawa for over 40 years, where he was a world-renowned leader in the applied field of sports psychology, mental training, and excellence. And he, in fact, passed away just 3 or 4 years ago on August 17th, 2021. And I want to read part of his obituary at the end, because I think it's a lovely note to end our podcast on. He would want us all to continue being in the moment, finding the simple joys and celebrating the highlights in each and every day of our precious lives. You can't end on a better note than that. And thank you, Terry, for those words. And thank you, Roy, for a very good episode.
In some ways, this podcast is like a cooperative game.
It is, really.
It is.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
It really is. This podcast is organic, taking shape with each episode. Building resiliency for teachers everywhere.
That sounds great.
And our website is stuntbrothers.ca.
That's stuntbrothers.ca.
We will chat again
after the bell.